Welcome to the Eat Y'all podcast, where we discuss the struggles and successes of the farmers, food producers, and chefs who are working to get better ingredients into restaurants today and to ensure their availability in the future.
This episode of the Eat Y'all podcast is made possible through a partnership with the Kentucky Beef Council, an organization working for the cattle producers of Kentucky in areas of promotion, education, and research. Learn more at kybeef.com. That's kybeef.com.
Welcome back to the Eat Y'all podcast. I'm your host, Andy Chapman. Well, Ariana, it's another one. You were back. How does it feel to be back after a little break for Thanksgiving?
It feels pretty amazing, I have to say.
Did you do any cooking?
I did no cooking. It was fantastic. We got a real break. We were over in the great state of Texas, but we'll get to that on a future podcast, I'm sure. Yes,
we will. That'll be spicy when we talk about that. This week, we're going to be talking more about beef. It's one of my favorite four-letter words, and it's one that I can use on this podcast and keep our ratings. So it's fascinating to hear what different farms are doing to grow out beef cattle.
We've had a lot of beef around our house. We're big fans of that four-letter word, if you will. Have you taken some time to wonder what makes the flavor of beef change from farm to farm or region to region? We've definitely noticed trying beef from a lot of different states and farms that there is some variance in the beef flavor.
Yeah, and the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen more farmers like these that we'll talk to today that are really working on the land they're farming to build it up, and then the land can sustain the cows and impact the flavors in a really good way. This week, we're going back to Kentucky at another Kentucky beef operation with the Chunglo family to hear what they're doing with their beef cattle herd and what sort of things they're doing to sustain and build their land. We can jump into this week's episode. You'll hear Adam Chunglo, his wife Elizabeth, and Katelyn Hawkins, again from the Kentucky Beef Council, and they're going to be interviewed by our mobile chef panel.
That's right. You will hear from our chefs who are going to be serving again. This is the second episode. So if you missed last week's, we had part 1 of our Kentucky beef episodes, and this is the second part of that. And so same chefs back again, Philip Cronin, Michael Kraft, and Spencer Searles. Really big steak cooking chefs up there in Kentucky. And later in the episode, you'll even get to hear from 10-year-old Seth Chunglo about how they track their cows on the farm. So it should be a good one.
Let's do it.
My name's Adam Chunglo, and we're at our farm here. It's called Trickling Creek Farm in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. It's an operation that I have here with my wife, Elizabeth, and our 2 kids, Emily and Seth, are both involved in our operation. And we raise registered Angus cattle and board a few horses and have some quarter horses. So we're kind of a diverse operation. We do rotational grazing for our cattle, and then we also have some leased hay ground around the area that we harvest and put up our own hay for our cattle and some square bales for our horses. And that's then our concentrate and our feed mixes are from a local feed mill here in Harrodsburg or in Kentucky. We've got Kentucky Nutrition in Nancy now that does our mineral program for us. Berkman's in Danville, we utilize their services. So between a few local companies, we work with their nutritionists and suppliers and things like that for our feed supplies.
How long have y'all been doing this?
Well, you could say we're first generation farmers in Kentucky. We've purchased this place in 2008 and started building from there. It's 40 acres here, and we started with just basically an old house and the horse barn and the riding arena and an old tobacco barn and a milk barn, and it had 3 pastures on it. And now we've since then built a bigger house because our family expanded, and then done modifications through EQIP programs and state cost share with county conservation districts, and work heavily with our NRCS agent here in the county, then utilizing services through the extension service and educational programs to learn more best management practices, some of the things they do up in Eden Shale through the Cattlemen's Association. So, it's never a time to not learn. You're always learning something every day, good or bad, I guess. So 2017, we had a straight line winds, which blew our tobacco barn down. So our goal of putting up a cattle barn was moved up on the list. It wasn't the priority at the time, but it became the priority. So this barn behind us here is our new cattle barn that we have our working facility in. We calve in it. We've got pens for show calves and cows and calves and that kind of thing. We've got built-in scales so we can monitor weight and track daily gain on our steers that we feed out. And we're developing bulls for selling for breeding stock. We keep track of their weights every month and how they're performing, and we'll adjust their rations accordingly. We keep records, spreadsheet records of calving dates and breeding records, and we do artificial insemination here the majority of the time. And then we do have a cleanup bull occasionally if we need it, but we can expand our genetics a lot faster using artificial, and you don't have to feed it all the time either, So fortunate enough to went through a program with UK to learn how to do that myself. So Elizabeth likes to laugh at me that my conception rate is a little less than when the other guys did it, but I'm getting better. Practice, yeah. So when you're armpit deep in there, there's not much you can tell, but just by feel. So. Yeah. But
quote of the day right there.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
That's right.
That should be on a plaque or something.
But that's why I laugh. I've got some good neighbors that they raise registered Angus too, and they'll come help me anytime I need. And we were in here in like late December breeding a cow, and he was helping me. He goes, "Man, it's cold this morning." I go, "Just think, you're going to the warmest spot on the farm." Yeah, we have fun, and we, like I mentioned earlier, we started this place. It had like 3 pastures on it, and now we've got 12 on this place, and we've got a long-term lease on a farm just north of us that joins us, and we were able to section that off into 6 pastures. And then there's 44 acres just to the south of us on our southern border here that a year ago we were able to purchase that land through a family trust and, kind of get it secured. We're working through an EQIP program with conservation right now. We started the application process in November of last year and finally got approved, and just the timing of it all was about the 3rd week of August. So we've really hit it hard here in September, building some new roadways and putting a water line in. We got about 2,200 feet of water line. There'll be 4 more waterers over there, and that'll get all split into 8 5-acre pastures. And then I've planted some what they call a novel fescue, which is a endophyte, a friendly endophyte. Endophyte is a part of the grass that sometimes will restrict their blood flow, that kind of a thing. It's just a natural thing that's in the, which it slows down growth in the summertime. But with this novel endophyte, it helps their daily gain and doesn't affect them as much in conception rates and things like that. So there's technology that we're adapting to and trying to utilize different products as they come available to us. So this is about the 3rd generation on this particular grass that we're putting in. We mix that with some timothy and orchard grass and then some red clover. And we utilize the red clover because that's a legume that fixates nitrogen in its roots. So as we put like a commercial nitrogen down from the fertilizer company, which costs money, you put that on there, that kind of helps hold that nitrogen in the grass and in your ground. So it's not just leaching out or anything like that.
So it kind of builds up the soil.
Correct. Yep. It's, we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have grass. Our cows basically, they'll eat stored feed till about mid-April. And then usually on a good year, our grasses are stockpiled and built back up enough where we can start turning them out. And hopefully, if we have enough moisture, I won't have to start putting feed out till late November. So it's a good thing, try to keep them fat and happy on on grass, and that's their superpower, is they convert grass to meat. So that's what we do. And our steers that we feed out for a few customers, they're always on grass. So they're grass-based and then a concentrate finish, and that gets that good marbling and keeps their daily gain going and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a good blend of both is what I've found for economics of it. So and then on that other piece over there, a new piece, we've actually doing some tree planting and some natural habitat just so that we can, we need to have a blend of wildlife and, keep our habitat area up and birds and natural things like that. So we don't want to push it all out and forget about that portion of the world. So keep the ecosystem moving. So we're doing a little bit of that just to kind of keep a blend of it. Some native grasses we'll be putting in next year. We've got some already that we utilize, which is a gamma grass, and we're actually putting some switchgrass in. We've utilized some crabgrass of all things. Everybody wants to get rid of that out of their lawn, but we actually plant a little bit for grazing. And those type of grasses grow a lot more in the summertime, in that June, July, into August, a real hot time of the year. So those ramp up and grow really well in those times. Sorghum Sudan, I had planted on this front field, this big pile of marshmallows behind you. That's all haylage bales. And that second half actually all of it is a Sudan grass, and it grows. You can actually watch it grow. I mean, it's like every day go out there and it'll be up a few inches. And then we mow it with a mower conditioner, which actually crimps the plant to let it dry down. And then we get it down to around that 40 to 50% moisture. And we roll bale it and wrap it in the plastic, and then it'll ferment itself in the plastic. And that way it's a good high quality feed during those cold times of the winter that we'll turn around and feed it back to the cows.
That fermentation, is that just an added nutrition? I know fermenting things, you get a lot of different nutrients out of things.
Right. Yeah, it basically it takes it in the sugars and everything, kind of breaks down the fiber of that plant a little bit, so it's a very palatable feed for them. Otherwise, it's kind of a stockier plant.
Is it easier for digestion?
Correct. Yeah, that helps with that too. Yeah.
Those microbes in the kettle, in the rumen, they really kind of feed off of that environment that it makes there.
So that's, you'll see around the countryside these big tubes of bales in the white plastic, and that's one type of making haylage, and when those tube line balers or the wrappers. And then I'm fortunate we've got a single bale. It uses a little bit more plastic, but with my herd size being 30 to 40 head during the wintertime, I can't feed fast enough out of one of those tubes. So with a single bale at a time, you don't get that waste and everything else. So it fits our program.
Does look like a nice sized marshmallow for sure.
Yeah.
I like the marshmallow analogy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a graham cracker and a fire.
Big fire.
Yeah.
Big fire.
Get some real
so that was
Ghostbusters.
There's 184 bales in that pile, and that came off of 20 acres.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's
And
how
was it
much
That cleared out 20 acres?
That's this farm right to the south of us.
Yeah,
Here.
so on this property.
That was 2 cuttings. Yeah.
So you do the feed and everything on site.
Correct. On the round bale side of it, yes. We were able, with getting this piece of ground purchased this year, we put annuals in it. And then the back half, we actually planted a soybean and millet mix. Wow. And that we were actually, since we had fortunate with so much feed, we were able to dry bale that this year. And that made 20 acres, made 128 bales. I mean, it was like.
And how many head of cattle do you have on?
About 35 to 40. So, we've got way more feed than we can handle. So we were fortunate that we've got individuals that are always looking. And so we were sell that extra. And like I was saying, we've got about 50 acres around the neighborhood of rented ground for hay too. So straight across the street, that piece works around these houses, and then a couple pieces. So, we don't have anything huge, but it works for us.
Huge to me.
Yeah. So, we've been pretty fortunate with that. And
you guys have calves, and how?
We have brood cows, the mama cow, and then we breeder and have the calf, and then we'll wean it off. And it'll either, depending on its genetics, if it's a male, it'll either get put in the bull development program or it'll get castrated and be fed out to head to the freezer. And new process in life, everybody's got purpose. So
you guys raise them from calf to
processing, or selling for production bulls to breeders.
Do you process here in the Bergen, Harrodsburg area?
Our processors, we try to stick to USDA inspected facilities because we are reselling it to individuals. So I always like to make sure we keep that stamp and keep everything on the up and up. So we've utilized Boone's in Bardstown quite a bit, Marksbury's in Lancaster.
Kentucky,
Yes, everything's done in the state.
Yep.
The cows, they're here for their life. Unless they can't perform, then we have another alternative. So fortunately, with the Kentucky ground beef program and the processing with that here in Lancaster there at Marksbury's, we've been able to utilize that. That's been a good outlet for producers to having a source to move their cows and be able to sell that right back into Kroger and all that stuff. So that has been a nice marketing avenue for us, and really appreciate, that the Cattlemen's Association working through and getting that developed and everything else, having that local product for everybody.
During the pandemic, did you see a rise in your demand for local beef?
Yes. Yeah. We have 6-7 customers on a waiting list.
That's excellent, though.
and I don't have enough steers. Yeah. And then when I started calling in March, I couldn't get a processing date.
Yeah.
And everybody was plugged up. And then I finally, one was like, I can get you in August. I said, really?
Yeah.
Next year of 21.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh. I said, my steer's going to be,
So what do you do, like, as a farmer in a pandemic? Like,
well, it's a challenge. We were able to move them to other individuals that had extra slots or had booked more slots than they had cattle for, and we were able to
just had to work a little harder and pivot,
line that up. And I know, like Boone's, for example, in first part of October, they said they were going to start. They weren't going to take dates for January to April until the 6th or whatever it was at 9 a.m. I called, which my phone said 9. But apparently it wasn't 9 to them because they wouldn't answer the phone. And it said, you reached us because we're closed. Well, I kept calling, and I called 26 times and never got through until 10:45. And my date that I could get was March 9th. So, it's just that crazy, But, it's a really good thing, but it also shows the demand for processors in the state for beef because the consumer is now looking for that product.
And we've seen that happen nationwide, everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nebraska, Mississippi, Georgia, everybody's trying to get stuff off the hoofs and into the freezer.
Yeah. So we were fortunate. Marksbury's called me 2 weeks ago, and it was like a Friday afternoon. They said, "Hey, did you process your steers?" Yeah, I said no. And they said, "Well, we've been working on a little deal that we want to do something for farmers, and it's going to be not a full custom package, but it'll be A, B, or C. So you want a bone-in package, a boneless package, or grounding the whole thing?" I said, "Okay, we'll look at it. That's great." And they said, "Because we want to put a whole volume through one day." I said, "All right." And I said, "When's this going to be?" And I said, "Monday."
Wow.
I went, okay. And then they're like, I said, "Can I see what those programs look like?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'll email it over." She sends it over. I get it like 10 minutes later. I look at it and it says, "Please let me know in an hour." It's like, so I'm scrambling around. I'm calling my customers going, "Hey, will this work for you?" Because they were cutting steaks at like 1.5 inches, basic, just getting it cut, getting it processed fast and in a package deal. But, it worked out. My customers were happy. But, unfortunately, I had 2 customers, each of them taking a half. So, it did work out really well for me, but it was one of those, okay, got to kind of roll with the times and just do what you can do. So,
have you found people to be pretty understanding of, hey, this is our limitations right now? And
yeah, I think there's enough exposure on it, or the people that are looking for it have either researched it or talked with enough people that they've realized that, the way that the system's working, everybody's doing their best. So that's been pretty understanding so far.
I have a question.
All right, let's go see some cows.
Hi, everyone. It's Mariana, and let's talk beef for just a minute. It's been informative and eye-opening to visit several Kentucky-based beef operations with chefs over the past couple of years, thanks to the hospitality of the Kentucky Beef Council. One thing we've learned is that a lot of thought and care goes into raising beef with superior flavor, texture, and nutrition. I want to put the best in my body in terms of flavor and nutrition, and I bet you do too. One way you can do that is by reading labels for country of origin and asking more questions about where and how your beef is raised. That small bit of thoughtfulness will make a big difference to your health and to the sustainability of producers like those in the Kentucky Beef Council who work hard every day to bring only the best to your plate.
When you're away from the farm and you got calving and whatnot, this is a device that was developed in Europe. And this actually goes around their tail, and it monitors activity. And then once it starts to have frequent movement, I get a text message and an email that says, your cow has had high activity, which means they're starting to go into labor. So that's just a piece of technology, uses basically like a cell phone, strapped to the cow's tail.
So his cow calls him out.
Yeah, calls him. Yeah.
So if a tail's wagging more, that means they're almost in distress.
The direction, when they're swishing for flies, it's kind of side to side. Yeah. But in a calving activity, it's kind of straight back. Okay. Both when they're strenuous or straining or go into contractions, it's kind of going straight back and forth, and that picks up enough rhythmic of that. That it'll send a message to me and do that. So
gotta go.
So yep. Then that's you laugh at.
I need one of those to get me out of work.
Get a phone call from a lady in England that says, we've noticed your moo call hasn't had a lot of activity. And it's like, yeah, it fell off. It's out in the pasture. We gotta go find it. Or it's something like that.
So all of them have the leashes on them. Are they being showed or?
This group of heifers, yes, is a group that they're just a year old, and we're going to try to break some of them to show, and some of the sales that we are involved in. We don't market a whole lot through the stockyards, with them being registered purebreds and that kind of thing. We utilize some of the area consignment auctions through breed associations, or the Kentucky Beef Expo up in Louisville in March has like a show and sale. So they'll have a show where you can take them and show them and everything, and then there's an auction after that. Awesome. And so that way, kind of gives a different.
You can just walk them like.
Yeah. That's the idea, is get them to where you can just lead them around like a dog.
Sometimes it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't. Yep, depends on the animal.
Usually doesn't work with the dog either.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why they're in here for right now and just kind of chilling out.
So you said you all raise Angus?
Correct. Yeah, these are all registered Angus.
You're good. Should have known.
Yeah. So this is our nitrogen tank. This is a semen tank here. This is filled with liquid nitrogen. It's got all the kids are in here. So each goblet that hangs in here has got liquid nitrogen in here. We can't get it out of the nitrogen because then it'll thaw out. But basically, in each canister, you'll have these holders, and they'll have each goblets will be held in here, and then there'll be little straws. I wish I had one out here. But anyways, it's about 4 inches long, little straw. You got this kid up here. You got a water bath, and you basically take that frozen straw out and you set it in the water bath to thaw it. So this is your thaw unit. There you go. And this is your arm to get you armpit deep in. So anybody needs one, you know.
Do you do this?
He stuck his arm in there once.
I check a few, but not really.
But
Not yet. Not so it's part of your chores.
Basically, get your, what they call it, an AI gun, and this will take a quarter and cc straws. Basically, they've got it down to where they'll do sex semen or traditional, conventional. So they'll either sort them, and there'll be like a pink straw for female, a regular straw for conventional.
They separate the male and female
Female cells. So that's
crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
Do you know how they do that? How does that work?
It is like this big fancy laboratory that it comes down through, and there's some sort of pull, and it's separating cells that it's coming through, and it's pretty wild.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And they do that, and then they put it and freeze it and send you. Of course, they like charge you more for female.
Yeah.
You know, that's when you're trying to build a herd, you know,
Right.
depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to build a certain bull market, or, you know, that's gotten to where utilizing male sorted for commercial guys to build more, make sure you got a bigger group of steers because you get a bigger profit or more consistent price if you have a consistent lot size. So if you did like that. So Seth here's got an example of what you do. You get your straw, your arm on there. You know it's the wrong arm, but anyway, that's okay. I know, but you always put your left in.
I can't.
Right on his parade there.
Yeah. So you take it out of the tank, put it in your thaw unit. Once it's thawed, dry it off. You put it in here, snip the top of the plastic off because it's kind of like a pixie stick. It's kind of zipped on the top of it. Nip it off there. Go in there and slide it in.
Get your lube on first.
Yeah, get your lube on there, and so it's ready to go.
Seth knows how to do it.
He's halfway there.
He's got an idea. So, a funny story about that.
A lot growing up than when I was your age.
We had that bottle sitting in the other barn during the wintertime so it didn't freeze, and the neighbor was over and they were helping doing something, and he went in there to wash his hands, and he comes out and goes, "Man, I don't know what kind of soap that is, but I can't get that off my hands." I says, "Soap? Let's get out of that big pump bottle." I says, "That was lube. That wasn't soap." He was like, "Oh." So, fun on the farm, right? Fun on the farm. So, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. That's AI work right there.
Yeah.
The only other times we use these are to wash off our dogs when they get sprayed by the skunk.
Oh, really?
There you go.
What kind of dogs do you have?
Australian Shepherds.
Oh, yeah? Good farm dogs.
Do they have an accent?
So then on the tops of each...
It's a classic.
On the top of each cane there's got this top numbers, like the identity number of the bull, the name of the bull. And so that way when you're staring down into that tank, you can go, okay, that's the one I want. You know, you're not pulling them out or looking. Like you'll see that as we drive out and around is where we're trying to improve things and keep that erosion down. And, you know, it's amazing that we live off of the 6 inches of the top ground, you know, across this nation is what we rely on is topsoil, you know, so can't let that blow away. Let them graze it down, and then let the other fields rest and grow back up. So it's nice, lush grass. They go in, they'll eat that top out. They'll even tell you, you know, you can drive out to check them, and they're like, "Hey, are we going to move or what?" You know. So, and they actually have to move right now, so you all get to do that. So.
Also goes back into temperament too.
Temperament,
so
yes. Docility is
the show
huge.
cattle. You can walk up to them; they're kind of like puppies of sorts, but also with the mamas because they've got to work on them. They've got to calves the same.
Yeah, we try to keep a very calm and collected herd. You know, we get one that's just really crazy and whatever. We usually try to, with having kids and everything else working around, it just gets unsafe or something like that. So.
You know, you find out they're crazy when you stick the kids and you try to work on them with the kids. So.
Learning curve.
Yeah. So, work on our way out there.
We're ready.
Narski has, this is a similar winter hay feeding system. I added the bunks on this side so that we could utilize it.
Are those the feed troughs?
Yes, yeah. Right where he's running through is all concrete bunks to put your concentrate in there and let them eat out of.
And what's you have concrete floors as well?
Correct, yeah.
And that's to help
keep
things clean.
Yes, contain the manure, get rid of the mud, all that kind of thing.
And this is like kind of a newer thing that...
Correct, yeah. So it's raised in the center to get your hay in there. And, with now that we've got us all rocked all the way up here, the tractor can stay on rock. We're not rutting up the fields and that kind of thing. We were just finished rocking this lane all the way to the back, so we can actually, the idea is to use any of these fields along this lane. The cows in the wintertime can meander in and out of a field at their pace, come up, eat some hay, whatever. And with their water being out there, they won't stay here all the time. They'll head back. Okay. Or we can let them in, open the gate for the night and let one group come up and eat and go back, or daytime or something, so we can rotate it back and forth is the idea. I guess I threw out some terminology earlier, but I didn't ask if everybody knew what I was talking about. I was talking about heifers and steers and all that. Heifer's a female that is hasn't had a calf yet.
Okay.
So she's born a heifer, and then until she has her calf, then she becomes a cow. Okay. And then the steer is a castrated male. So our bull calves, that don't have the potential or are not going to be breeding stock, we just castrate them, and that way their mind is solely on growing beef.
Yeah.
So this field we just passed there, those are some steers laying up here on the hill, and that little bull that was farther back there, he was sold through a a Central Kentucky Angus Association sale in September, and then his buyer is actually out of Alabama, so he's waiting on a ride to his new home. So he's hanging out until we go. So that's kind of how we are. You can see the different rotational grazing fields here. This field right next to us, I actually sprayed that to kill out the weeds and the grass that's in it. And then I planted some ryegrass in it on Saturday. So that'll grow up in there for the late fall and the springtime. And then next year, we're actually planting the switchgrass in that field. Okay. So where you're switchgrass, and we get into the gamma grasses and a few of these other summer annuals or summer perennial grasses, native grasses, and like the switchgrass and the gamma grass, they're actually a Kentucky native product. Okay. So we try to utilize those too to have good habitat for everything. Yeah. And
I liked it. Yeah.
Also, we'll get a lot more birds because of the canopy that stuff will produce. Yeah. And then you turn in the cows every so often, and it kind of helps both sides.
Yeah.
All right, Seth, so who are we putting the tag in? Pick one of these chefs.
Stand over here. Done me. Stand over here. Here, let me just hold the bag. I'll hold the bag.
We have a hat.
Oh.
They cost $2. Phil, we're not wasting a tag. You kidding?
All right.
So you put the mom's ID number up at the top to know.
So what would a mom's ID be? Would it be like 245 or something? Like
it would be.
Use your.
Like
it would be 707 if it was mine.
Okay.
And then we would write on here with a marker to 707 at the top, and then put 2004 as my calf's ID number. The 20 stands for the year that it is born in, and the 4 stands for the birth order of calves already.
So that would be the 4th cow from that
20.
And then at the bottom is the birth date of the calf.
And so is that like my birthday, 10/17/78? Would you do it? Do you do the whole thing like 2020, or do you just do the last two? Okay.
Last two.
All right. And then what happens?
With that cow?
Then you put the tag in here. I don't have a button to do it, but
Now, does that hurt the cow?
Shouldn't.
Just like an ear piercing.
Right.
Yeah. And then he would squeeze the ear, and then the tag in.
Can you do a cow by yourself?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you're almost there, right?
So do they go through the chute and you guys do that?
If it's an older calf and we're just making an adult tag for it, yes. But if it's out in the field in a pen, we'll just grab it and tag it.
So you're like kind of doing a little bit of rodeo stuff. You climb on them and hold on while you do that. Can you rope a cow?
I've tried.
Your mom said you wanted to get in the rope.
Do they have rodeos up here?
Sometimes.
All right, so first up, we always try to ask some culinary questions to get kind of a general feel. And so the first one is this one. Is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread.
What is your favorite barbecue? Where we go with ribs, brisket, chicken, Boston butt?
Pulled pork.
Well, hey, look, he's so guilty. I feel like he was pretty hesitant about that. Like he just.
I had chicken salad for breakfast. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right, so pulled pork. And what's your favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye.
Bone in?
No, I usually get mine boneless. So. Tell a funny story. My grandma, she's what was she? She was in her 80s, mid 80s, and she came to our house for Easter one year when we were living in Pennsylvania. So she rode down from Massachusetts with my parents. So we thought, well, we had processed this deer and we got some steaks out and had some T-bones out there and had them on the grill. They came in, we got them on the table and put it down in front of my grandma, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, I'll never eat all this." I went, "Well, you eat what you want." Time we got done, she's sitting there, 84 or 5 years old, chewing on the bone, you know. It's like, "Grandma, I thought you weren't going to eat that." I couldn't let it sit there. She was
my kind of grandma.
Yeah,
you gotta be.
She grew up on the farm. She knew what it was about.
Yeah. She knew she could eat it.
Yeah.
She's just trying to be polite. That's what they do. Well, look, thank y'all for having us out to your farm and for just opening your whole world up to us and sharing with us. It's been a treat. We've enjoyed it very much.
Well, that was fun. It's really great to hear from the young future farmers who, like Seth, even at age 10, are already working in the family business and learning the art and science of farming and showing 4-H animals. I think that's something that is really important, that the next generation be prepared for an eventual succession plan on the farm.
Yeah, he's a bright young man, and he's funny. He may end up as a comedian, but he sure did love showing us the ropes on the farm. And, it was awesome to see the excitement that he had working on the farm, driving the equipment, moving the cows around almost single-handedly. He was on that gator just zipping around. I think his parents more than once told him to slow down a little bit because he was quite confident on the equipment, which he was also safe. So,
yeah, and it's definitely a labor of love to work on a farm. It is a 365, 24/7 type job. And so learning that hard work at a young age will be really valuable for him, as I think it was for me growing up on my family farm.
All right, well, this party ain't over yet. You want to help set up what happens on the second half of this podcast?
Yeah, so this is where I got to help host the podcast for the first time ever.
Yeah, and y'all be sure and leave some reviews on this because we're not sure we want to keep doing this, but it is true. That was her first time and your debut, if you will. And we were in downtown Lexington at the fabulous, the iconic Jeff Ribby's Steakhouse, and we got to visit with some chefs there. Well, the same chefs we were with, Phil and Michael and Spencer. Over a steak dinner, we recap their day touring 2 Kentucky beef cattle operations, what they saw and learned. And of course, we had a fun lightning round, which if you've been listening to the podcast, we're going to find out if they like biscuits or cornbread. But there's also some deep thinking on some answers. So there's some major bonus content, and we will go there now. I'm really excited to be here with Michael Kraft, Phil Cronin. We're here downtown Lexington at a place that Phil and Michael have never eaten. So this is really exciting for me to get to have that special moment with you guys, kind of have our first Jeff Ribby's dinner together. This is really cool. But earlier today, we had a little farm visit.
12 hours ago?
12 hours ago.
Was that today?
12 and a half
it was
hours
dark
ago.
Then, too.
Yeah,
we
don't forget
took
our friend
off.
Spencer over here. He joined us as well.
Yeah.
Spencer? Spencer's the fly on the wall. But, okay, so you guys have been to farms before. You obviously know the beef industry pretty well from a fired up on the grill sort of mentality. Is there anything you learned today? Is there anything that these farmers are doing that stood out to you at the end of your, like, oh, I didn't ever think about that?
One of them had a really nice vacation home. I don't know how he gets any farming done there. It was a really nice place, and all the farms I've been doing have been a muddy mess.
Right.
And this place was top notch.
Yeah, the first farm both farms we visited, the feed where the feeding happened, where the concrete slab, the footing where the actual cattle stood. And that was something that I've never seen before. It made so much more sense to me to where you want your cows to eat, to be clean, just to see how far things have come in the cattle and farming world. And just a little piece of concrete slab just kind of was just like, wow, like that makes a huge difference. Like, because then John was talking about the pink eye and stuff. If your cow is standing and eating, I mean, you're gonna eat pretty much. Like, so it was just a really nice thing to see. They were standing on clean ground with their hooves, like just all of them were very clean, and it was just very eye-opening to me because I have been to other cattle farms and just seeing them just stand in their mess and eat. It was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, and I thought one of the things that we talked about driving back was, there's a lot of big farms. We've been to some big farms, but these guys didn't have a ton of actual acres and a ton of actual beef. But, man, they knew what was going on with every single cow on there.
But didn't name them, which...
You never name them.
That was my first question. What are their names? But John quickly said, no, we don't name them.
They have an ear tag number, and so it's 204.
See, I would have trouble with that.
861.
707.
I'd be like, Betsy?
I still remember
was a big
kill
cow.
time. Yeah.
I still remember when we had sheep as a kid, 52 was one of the sheep's names, and she was like a huge troublemaker.
Yeah, watch out for 52.
Yeah. So that is funny because it's like not really a name, but it stuck. So, Michael, is there anything that you learned as far as the rotational grazing, anything like that stood out to you today?
Nothing really stands out. I guess the difference in the first farm we went to and how adamant he was about keeping the hay dry from start to finish and not letting it saturate and make a lesser product and not product, but food source for the cows. Not a whole lot, I guess. No, rotational grazing is always kind of. I mean, I grew up around farms and stuff, and you move them from pasture to pasture because they wear one out, you go to the next.
Yeah,
it wasn't a shock,
but it was beautiful to see.
It
just
was,
on these little plots.
I mean, they put us to work. We had to move a few cows, to the next. I feel like you could call me a cowboy, maybe. I don't know.
I was going to call you a border collie, but that was cool. And what you said, Michael, the hay storage. I mean, I've grown up around cows. I've never seen anybody take the kind of care of the hay that John was taking.
The barn was immaculate. I mean,
siding that he had on it was, when I saw the siding, I was like, this dude is, he's killing it. I mean, but like you said, he cared so much about what he was putting into the cows. And then I was just looking at those furry cows and I was just like, that thing probably tastes amazing.
It's like eating a teddy bear.
Right. Exactly. And, he was very adamant about keeping it dry and I never thought about that before because I always drive by and see hay bales sitting out in the middle of the field and I'm like, oh, that's going to be feed. But, like you said, it gets moldy. It ferments to a point where they don't eat it. It sits in their digestive system because it's not doing anything for their bodies. So
they're not getting the gains.
Not getting the gains, yeah. But, yeah, I just thought that was really, really cool.
He did talk about weight gain as a big, every day they got to be out there gaining. And I think that's, if you think about, it makes total sense. You want to have, if you're an athlete, which is last year when we were out there at Kerry King, he was basically talking about his guys like they were, NFL draft ready. Right. It's like, if you're out there, you're going to want all these nutritional things.
The bulls are out there fighting.
Yeah. He's like, you want the toughest, the best, whatever. But if you're an athlete, Not the toughest. I was corrected. Not the toughest, but the strongest.
Big, strong cattle.
Right.
Most muscular. But what you're eating and what you're putting into your body makes, that's all your nutritional thing. It's everything kind of builds from that. So if you're eating hay that's been stomped around in the mud, in the rain, weeks at a time, I don't know how good your steak could possibly be.
Right.
And this is like, no, I've got the Ritz-Carlton, what am I trying to say? The dietitian plan of like nutrients and whatever. And I feel pretty good about how that's going to turn out.
And not only the hay, but the grain that we saw him give the animals was just, to see that in his hand, him feeding, it always came to fruition. Like he cared about the product that he was feeding his animals. So like that made you like want to eat that steak immediately.
I didn't ask him, but I did want to ask what we had to do to taste one of his cows today.
Yeah. Right.
And that actually would have been a great idea.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see some marbling. I wanted to actually see some of the steaks in progress.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know how today, or seeing beef operations in general, makes you think about, like, how does what they do affect what you do? How does their care of the animal trickle down? In your opinion, how does that trickle down to what you cook and serve to the customer?
Happy cows taste better.
Happy cows do taste better. You look at those farms and you know that they are doing everything they can to put the work into the food and then into their land, into the soil, into their animal. You know that piece of meat is going to taste delicious. Yes, we work at a high-volume steak restaurant here, but every steak that I cook, that I put into the broiler, I think about the animal. And when I go to farms like that and I see the animal, it makes me even more proud of what I do. So that's, it makes a difference. Like you care about food a little bit more.
What he said. You kind of wonder what their name was sometimes.
Michael Kraft. They do have names. They're just all numeric.
What would you call the big one that we saw the first one today?
707.
Sally or something. Oh,
I'd
she
call
was
him
such a
Big
beautiful
Billy.
cow. It was a girl.
That was a steer. They're all steers.
They were all steers?
At the first farm.
The first farm was all steers.
Well, he was beautiful.
He was
now
very
we know.
handsome.
Yeah.
And there's lots of pictures of that on the Eagle Instagram and on Michael Kraft's Instagram.
Yeah. So did you both go to the beef farm last year to Kerry Kings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you went today. Do you see a trend in the beef industry? Because that's what the beef industry is.
Well, I thought
last year was a lot bigger farm.
It was a lot bigger, and it was a beautiful day.
I was surprised at the acreage of the first one. He said he had 50 acres, and it was lakefront,
right?
Which was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I assumed maybe that they had more animals and more acreage, but this wasn't that big of an operation.
Right.
Not that it's a bad thing, but it was different from last year for sure.
My wife is from Harrodsburg, and I was just so blown away. Like, we went to Kerry Kings, and I was like, okay, now I know a cattle farm over here. But then you brought us to two more, and I was like, I have to know Andy to know these, and he lives in Mississippi. It was really, now that I take that road, like, I'm going to be like, I've been to that farm. I know what goes on there.
Well, and I think for me, the different breed, like the Belted Galloway and Galloway breeds, obviously, you drive down the road, you see a bunch of different colored cows and different. You're like, okay, there's Holsteins and Jerseys and Guernseys and all that in the dairy side, and then you're like, okay, there's Black Angus, Red Angus, Brahmas, Charlemagne's, whatever what's the ones, the white ones that we were talking about? Yeah, those.
Yeah, you had it right.
But that Belted Galloway was something I'd never really seen, like the long-haired cows up close like that. And maybe at a livestock show at a very young age, but those are some really cool-looking cows. Their hides are cool. And John basically said it's part of his view and love of that brand of cattle, or that breed of cattle, was the kind of boutique marketing angle of, hey, I've got something that's different. And I think that's neat that I mean, farmers are in a big commodity world like that, carving out something different because, I mean, you guys are doing boutique, really cool, special food in a world where there's thousands of steakhouse chains and there's thousands of Applebee's and Longhorns and Cracker Barrels and Chick-fil-A, and it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you actually leave your mark on something, or are you just fine with just...
First off, let's not knock Applebee's because it's our neighborhood grill.
I was just trying to be funny. I feel like Michael's getting a little sensitive about that too, so I withdraw my Applebee's comment.
You can cut that. You can cut that out.
Okay. And we'll talk about the wings later, but
I think it's interesting that y'all have been to 3 farms. They're different. I mean, you can see the differences in them, but they're all family owned, relatively small operations. And I grew up on a beef farm, and similarly, we cared for our animals. And that's the interesting thing that we found out about farming is that, big beef commodity is really just a bunch of families across the country that care a lot about their animals in little different ways, farm to farm, but generally care a lot about what they're doing, and they think about it, and they feed their families their own beef, and and all those things. And I think it's interesting to go out and see those operations, and then see that there's a repetitive pattern here where every family. And I'm wondering, like, did you see that in that process and other commodities that we've worked with where you find out that, you're just supporting a lot of family farms when you buy this product, wherever you buy it from? It's just a lot of family farms that create the big, the big beef, I guess.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's, I don't know how to really say, like, every farm felt the same that we went to, but they all have their unique way of doing things, just like all restaurants have their unique way of doing things. But, the end product is still the same. Everybody cares about their product. Everybody wants the best product for these animals and to put the best product on the plate for the families. So, I mean, that's, and you're just talking to John and Adam, that's important to them. And just like me and Michael and Spencer here, us cooking in kitchens, putting the best product on a plate is important to us. So it all is full circle a little bit. Like to see the farmer care so much about the soil, the grass, the hay, the feed, what they give their animal, and then how they treat their animal, and then give it to the consumer, their families. It's just it's a special thing to see, and it makes you more in tune with what you actually do as a chef.
Yeah.
Those small farms versus commodity beef, those small farms, that's their name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You sell commodity beef, you're sending that off to someone, and someone else is taking that name on. These people, you can tell, care. They have a level of care that is based on, they have a small herd, so there's limited things that they have to... They're focusing on those 50 cows and trying to make those 50 cows as good as possible. But also, when they send that off to somewhere, that's their name, And you could really tell that in the way they were raising their cattle and the care they took and making sure that they were happy. And there's a lot of respect for the cattle there. I haven't seen a lot of commodity beef and how that functions. But just seeing that side of it from like the small end of cattle, and you can just there's like a personal
Feels better.
aspect to it. Yeah, like
I mean, we walked up and they weren't scared. Right. They walked right up to us, and just at Kerry King's house or his farm, that he whistled and they all came to him. It was just like they weren't scared. That's a relationship that is nice to see.
Yeah.
The butchering, the processing process, when they said A, B, and C, like because you have to think about what they're going through, just like us, what we're going through right now during a pandemic right now. Yeah. Like they have all these cows on their land and they have to figure out how to get them to the people, get them to their families. Yeah. So Mark's Ferry Farm said, well, we have A, B, and C. You can grind it all, it's all bone on, or you can have it all bone off. I mean, the decision you have to make is just, and you have to call all your people with these cows on your property. I mean, that's got to be
and then
nerve-wracking.
get the animal there maybe in
and
2
you
days.
Have teenage kids. I mean, I mean, I learned something there. Like, I'm not the only one going through a pandemic right now. Like in a restaurant, like I know these guys do this. These guys are doing the same thing, but like it comes down to the farmer, like what they're going through. Like it's on a different end of the spectrum.
You just gotta find a way to supply the demand.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
and
it's not all the demands the same.
Yeah. When he was, and he's there with his kids and his wife, like this, and he has another job besides that. That was just that kind of was just like, damn, this guy's hustling.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too. One of the pieces of technology where they had the little tail, tail thing to tell them what, the swisher.
Tanya wished she had that on me. Track me.
Tracker, yeah. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of technology that goes into farming. I mean, that device could text him and let him know if mama cow was calving.
Yeah, that in the middle of the field.
I mean, all this stuff hooked up to Bluetooth.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's just wild. Yeah.
I didn't like that they made me step on the scale and they read my weight.
You're 193. I feel like that's a problem.
I missed that.
Like you're solid. It's solid muscle.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we
You
can
hear
do
that, ladies? Tanya, you hear that?
Spencer just said if you couldn't hear him, he just said you're stacked, Phil. So
yeah, well, I'm going home with
and
Spencer.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm not arguing with that. It's he's going to have a double stack of the scalloped potatoes, I think.
Yes.
So
in my bed.
Michael Kraft, if somebody is interested in coming to a chef camp or a Eat Y'all event, what would you tell them?
Get ready to learn a lot, have some fun, meet some cool people that are passionate about what they're doing. Whether we've been to beef camps, we've been to a couple cheese camps. That still involves cattle, but you learn so much that's behind the scenes that you don't really realize that goes on, especially with smaller farms, people that are more in touch. They're not big, huge commercial operations. Just the care that people, what they wake up thinking about controlling that day and doing that day is totally different than what I do, but it's all related as well. Mm-hmm. And the product that they grow or make the product that I put on a plate, we put on a plate. It's just crazy.
Hopefully we recruited one today. And Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah, Spencer will be...
Bring a warm sleeping bag, maybe a tent.
And just
I always wind up sleeping outside of these camps, and I don't know why. I don't know why I always have to sleep outside. I haven't figured it out yet. There has to be there's some sort of pattern here.
We can talk about that later in the therapy session that we're going to have later. That's not for the
never
podcast.
Bring a sleeping bag.
No,
or something to sleep in.
No, I do.
But you always end up sleeping outside because you think that's cool.
No, I never.
There's
not room in the house, or feels like let's go sleep in this cornfield and build this fire.
Oh yeah, that was my idea.
We didn't look at the weather.
That.
Yeah, we didn't. No, that was.
Did y'all meet at Sheffield?
No.
You knew each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
All these fabulous friendships.
Yeah, I mean and also. You let us talk about things that we normally don't get to sit down and talk about, and you're a great you're a great interviewer, or someone who interviews people and
therapist.
That's my other job.
And you do a great job, and we appreciate you. And what you and your wife do is amazing. So we appreciate you.
Like it's the kind of discussions that, especially here, like being back here, chefs need to be having. You know what I mean? Like, starting to get to know your food and where it's coming from, and kind of talking about how that affects us as restaurants. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Something I haven't seen a ton of since I.
When I went to the first chef camp, I was like, "Who's this guy that's trying to talk to me?"
Were you like, "That's the guy that invited me," or is it Kenny?
No, it was you. I was like, "Why is he trying to talk to me?" but then I got to know you, and
I just thought, this guy drives a Honda Pilot.
Yeah.
I like Honda Pilots. I don't know. I thought
he cracks dad jokes. I cracked dad jokes. What was the joke you said today? I was just like, oh yeah, what kind of dogs do you have? Australian Shepherds. And then he said, do they have an accent?
That is on record.
And the kid looked at me like this.
Little Stan was that his
He
name?
spit a dip, spit out too. He was like, shut up.
All right, so we're gonna do the lightning round. Look, I'm gonna give this
Spoon bread.
All right, so we're gonna Spencer. You switch with Mariana. I'm gonna put you on the lightning round too.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with Spencer. Biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread.
Michael Kraft.
Same question.
Same question.
Biscuits.
Biscuits.
That's so tough.
I was hoping someone
Cornbread, no
why.
sugar. I don't want sugar.
Oh,
in my
that's a
cornbread.
cake. It's not. Anyway.
Well,
yeah.
sugar.
Yeah.
Cornbread with sugar. That's a cake.
Yeah,
I
that's
want
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
cornbread.
saying.
I don't like sugar in my
Yeah,
cornbread.
I agree.
Okay.
Bunch of butter.
Yeah.
Bunch
of butter. You can go
You
savory
go
with
sweet butter.
jalapeno.
You can go sweet butter,
like a
but not
sorghum
sugar
butter
in
on
the,
top.
yeah.
But I'm a cornbread guy. I like cornbread.
All right. I mean,
But biscuits in the morning.
if it's in the morning,
It's
do you
biscuits.
really want cornbread in the morning?
I mean, it depends.
Yeah, I want
Yes.
cornbread all the time. But
Okay.
You put jelly on
I
cornbread?
make pretty good. I can make
That's like a
but
hard
I
question.
know.
man.
I took
You're
biscuits.
asking a bunch of
I
guys.
took biscuits. I like cornbread. I make good cornbread, but I make better biscuits than all of you. So
I'm willing to suss that out
That's
unless we
not
can
true.
we can
Okay,
discuss
yeah.
that further
I
and
will,
samples.
We've already. You have.
I'll give
maybe
you-
that's the guy in the back. Maybe
I'll
that's the
give
guy
you
in the back.
45 minutes. The ovens are probably
45 minutes.
preheated.
They don't. We don't have the flour I need here.
Yeah, the butter's not soft.
That's why I'm giving him 45 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Biscuits or cornbread. That's Act 1. So, favorite cut of steak. What did you just order?
New York strip.
New York strip.
But I love a ribeye. I do love a ribeye.
My favorite cut would be the Denver. It all depends on the animal
John
as
Denver,
well.
Bob Denver.
Neither one. It depends on the animal. If it's if it's not a high quality, very marbled animal, I might just lean towards a basic strip, not go up underneath chuck roll to get the Denver out.
There you go.
But you don't see it offered at a lot of places. If I do see a Denver offered, I'm definitely ordering it. Maybe 2.
A5 Wagyu decal. No, I mean,
Mic drop.
Do not drop this mic.
The decal
Those are
is
expensive.
is
I mean,
Is that the spinalis?
yeah,
Is that
it's
what-
been
outside
on
of the
top of
ribeye.
it.
Okay, all
But I mean,
I like using the technical terms because that's one of the few I know. So
I'll be a
Get it in
basic.
there while you
sous
can.
vide and spinalis in the same sentence.
Yeah.
That's for my jam right
I'll
there.
be a basic beef.
You
I
would
like
never
the
see beef
porterhouse or
spinalis in the
T-bone. You get the best of both worlds. I love it.
Yeah.
I love a strip and I love a fillet. So I mean, it's a good cut right there. And I think that's one of my favorite cuts. Though is the bone-in fillet. There's only like one on a cow that you can get. That's a very special thing when you get to eat that. And we serve them here, and it's one of the best steaks ever to eat. It's a special treat.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, barbecue. I'm a barbecue guy. I make a barbecue sauce rub,
Yeah.
so I have to ask. So if you're going between pulled pork, ribs, brisket, chicken, where do you land?
all right. I'd definitely say brisket. But I'm gonna throw it out there that a good hot guts sausage. That's the chain. But I do love a brisket if I gotta choose between those.
All right, Michael.
Right off the smoker, mine's brisket. If it's a day or 2 later, I'll take the pork.
That's fair.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna
Yeah.
have some left over.
Yeah.
Brisket to say as well. I mean, man, you just can't go wrong with what you said. Like right when you said that, I was just
When
like,
it's
my
like
mouth.
jiggly,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just grabbing it with your hand and just
But
I'm an animal,
I'm a mess. Anything that comes off of a smoker,
Yeah.
I'm all in it. So
I like chickens too.
Yeah, chickens.
They slow down long enough. There.
Mutton, anything. Give it to
you go.
me. So
All right, so you have an opportunity to have dinner with 3 living or dead people in the culinary world. Tonight. They're coming here.
All right. Ferran Adria.
Yeah, it is. I'm
Wiley Dufresne.
And Guy Fieri.
Man, I think we're done.
Oh, we love you, Guy.
That's really hard. That's like so many options. I can't even think of a third one. That's so hard.
My mom, Anthony Bourdain, and my first chef.
I didn't even think of Anthony Bourdain. What a
Yeah,
shame.
that's a
What
very
a shame.
My first chef. Yeah.
And
I'm going to phone a friend and ask Garrett.
What's the question?
What was the question?
Alive or dead, 3 people you would eat dinner with. Tough question, right?
But they have to be in the culinary industry.
You could literally sit there all night and drink and eat.
He's going to bring the party. That's the thing. It's going to be fun.
I would sit down with Ruby, man. Honestly.
Yeah.
Listen to him tell stories. All right.
Mr. Ruby. Sorry, Mom.
all right, so we have some post editing to do. Make sure Phil says Ruby first. All right. In Kraft, did you have Did you have one more?
No, I mean, the only thing that came to my mind was Bourdain. I can think of a lot of people I'd like to sit down and have dinner with, but not necessarily in the culinary world, that just pop into my mind. But when you think about something like that, there's a lot of people I'd love to sit down and have dinner with. And I couldn't pick 3 and disrespect 7 others.
Michael's table is long. This is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room in his
The problem is how many people would want to eat
Put the leaf on the table, Mom.
Yeah.
We got him coming over. All right.
And also Mr. Ruby.
Good call.
We're all fired. We will be fired tomorrow.
Yeah, it's on camera.
Any concert, any band in history, one concert, what do you hear?
Led Zeppelin.
Phil.
What kind of question is that on the spot?
Oh, this is the lightning round,
Any
Phil.
concert, dead or alive?
Dead or alive. And that could be Bon Jovi. Oh, wait. That's
Jovi,
a
baby.
song. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm getting them confused.
You can't top Led Zeppelin, though.
Sure, no choice,
I'm not wrong.
You're not.
I might say the band.
Yeah, that's...
Would you take a load off and watch the band?
I'd take multiple loads off.
Yeah, leave on hell, man.
Oh, man.
Just, I don't know, man. I love music, and G-Unit? No, no, I don't know. I don't know. That's hard. I have a very vast,
I'll throw this out there.
Alexa, play Kendrick Lamar.
I cannot imagine the feeling of seeing Jimi Hendrix playing with all those crazy amps and the fuzz and the dirt of
setting his guitar on fire.
Have you ever seen Gary Clark Jr.?
I mean,
I have.
Yeah, there you go. Gary Clark Jr. That would be my answer. Gary Clark Jr. with, like the Roots playing behind him. That's what I would want to see.
There you go. Rustic Root, or is that a different thing?
No, the Roots,
the
Roots.
Q-Tip and
Q-Tip. That would be. But his band is awesome.
Questlove, not Q-Tip. Questlove.
Yeah, Johnny Keys and Zappa. Yeah, Gary Clark Jr. is my answer.
Disrespect with your answer.
There you go.
Leaving these other people out.
This is
Jimmy Buffett.
This is Buffett. Pascagoula boy. That's not not far from. That's not far from where.
If I don't take this,
so Phil is going to bow out. I just want to thank everybody for hanging with us. The Eat Y'all podcast. Phil Cronin, Michael Kraft, Spencer, who he never gave me a last name,
Searles.
Spencer Searles, but not Jonathan Searles. We missed Jonathan.
Thank you very much, y'all.
It's great to have Phil here on the podcast. Michael, thanks for joining us, and we're going to wrap this one up. We will see you guys next time. Thanks to the Kentucky Beef Council for sponsoring this and helping us get to Kentucky and helping tell the stories of Kentucky beef farmers that are doing amazing things.
You've been listening to the Eat Y'all podcast, hosted by Eat Y'all founder and chief relationship officer, Andy Chapman. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd join us in our mission to save family farms by subscribing and leaving a review. Even better, share this episode and follow us on your favorite social media account at Let's Eat Y'all.